Good morning. Should British citizens have an automatic right to bring their spouses to the UK? Currently, you need to earn more than £18,600 a year if your husband or wife is from a non-EU country. More in some cases where there are children involved. The rules were brought in by the government 4 years ago to stop, they said, low-income migrant families becoming a burden on the taxpayer. But opponents say the rules are unfair and have led to thousands of children being separated from their parents. This morning, the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, will decide if the rules are lawful or not. Last year, our reporter Divya Tawa met Amira, a mother who fled Syria with her son and was separated from her husband because she didn't meet the minimum income requirement.
The seaside town of Barry Island in South Wales. This is now home for Amira and her son Jude since she fled from Syria. Two years ago, the daily sounds of gunfire and barrel bombs were normal life in Damascus with her Syrian husband Ahmed. Amira's British, her dad's Syrian, and she met Ahmed through her relatives living there. When Amira fell pregnant with Jude, the couple decided they had to leave the country. Amira came back to the UK just before giving birth, but Ahmed had to stay behind. He couldn't get a visa and still can't.
I don't meet the means or the requirements to bring my husband here on a spouse visa or likewise a family visa.
Since leaving Syria, Amira's home in Damascus has been bombed. Family members have lost their lives. Her husband Ahmed has now fled to Turkey. The family tries to Skype every day. Jude is one of at least 15,000 British children growing up in Skype families since the new rules came in, according to a report by the Children's Commissioner.
He's trying to get to him. He's trying to give him cuddles, and this isn't him just trying to press the buttons. It is him trying to get to this. You know, he's trying. See, he just wants to try and get to. He wants to try and get to his dad to have cuddles with him, and I can't keep on doing this, and I just can't keep on. It's just how can you carry on like this? How can we continue to live like this? You know, we want to be able to be together. We want to be able to sit down and relax together, but we can't. We have to stay like this. Yeah, good boy. Mama. Yes, kiss it. Baba.
Baba. And the update on their family is that Amira and her husband separated this year because the distance between them put too many strains on their relationship, they said. Let's talk now to two people who fall below the income requirement. Satbir Singh, who's a British citizen and can't bring his wife over from India, and Leanne Pape, whose American husband, AJ, faces being deported because of repeated visa rejections. And Chai Patel, whose charity, the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants, campaigns for fairness in immigration law. Welcome, all of you. Satbir, how long have you been living apart from your wife?
Going on 6 months.
What's that like?
Obviously incredibly challenging, incredibly unsettling, makes planning the future very difficult.
I think you married in 2014 after you met at university in London.
Yes.
So you married after these rules had been brought in. Were you aware of them?
We were. What we weren't aware of is a technicality in the rules. Both of us individually actually earn above the minimum income requirement. But as my wife is not an EU citizen, her income isn't counted. And as my work is basically on a contract basis, it's not counted either. Previously, we were living in the United States. Our visas were renegotiated and we were sort of required to leave the US, and it was at that point that we were involuntarily put in this position where we basically now have to live in separate countries.
You don't have to live in separate countries. You could move to India.
I could move to India, but if I did that, even if I got an incredible job, there's no way we would ever save the alternative savings requirement to move back to the United Kingdom.
Which is about £60,000.
Yes.
If you're living off savings, you have to have £60,000
Yes.
as a minimum. Easier said than done, I know. Are you trying to get a job which would
Yes.
give you an income of the minimum requirement, which
Absolutely.
is 18,600?
I currently earn above the minimum income requirement. Again, as I said, it's a technicality that contract work isn't sort of recognised. I'm obviously working sort of all hours that I'm not working on my actual job to find a new job. It's very difficult to turn down work as it comes, to say, well, I can't take on a new contract because I'm looking for a full-time job, because then you're foregoing income and you face even greater risk of not meeting any of the requirements, so you're sort of trapped between a rock and a hard place.
The original rationale from the government was about, effectively, the rules were brought in to try to reduce costs to taxpayers, and there are a couple of other things as well. Do you accept that as a rationale?
I don't, because spouses have not had recourse to public funds traditionally. They pay into the NHS before they're granted their visa. And if we're talking about the economics of it, the government's own Office of National Statistics points out that there is a net gain to the Treasury from spouses who come here and work and pay taxes, as my wife would, as many spouses would. So there's no sort of sensible logic behind the economic argument here either.
What about if you earn below the minimum income requirement, the 18,600 figure? You bring a spouse and a child. Actually, you'd have to earn 22,000 if you wanted to bring a child. Actually, the more dependents you have, the more likely you are potentially to be eligible for tax credits, so that could be argued is a burden to the taxpayer.
Well, it depends on how you're defining a burden. If you are a British citizen, you are part of a social contract that says sometimes I will pay into the system and at other times I will take out. And there is no need here to penalise British citizens who, for one reason or another, might not be earning at a very arbitrarily defined minimum income requirement, when at other points in their life they may well be paying more into the system than they take out. They're being penalised simply because they've married somebody who's from outside the European Economic Area.
Let me bring in Leanne Pape and AJ. Hello, both of you. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Clearly you're together, living in Newcastle, and you have a child as well. But I think, Leanne, because you don't earn the minimum income requirement, you don't earn enough, according to the government, then you, AJ, can't stay, as you're an American citizen.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've been fighting an immigration battle with this for 4 years now, just basically trying to get them to, you know, to see the human aspect side of things, that, you know, I don't earn 18,600. That isn't an average salary within my area. You know, and, you know, it is a struggle to try and hit that amount of money. And for that reason, we have been fighting a visa, you know, fighting a battle with the immigration. Obviously, if AJ was to be removed, you know, it would cause some problems for our son, who, you know, who would be devastated by that.
Of course. AJ, I'm going to ask you to speak up, because I think we've only got one microphone, so sorry about that. What effect is this having on you and your wife and your son?
Well, it's like the other guy said, we can't really plan for the future because I'm not allowed to work. I'm not allowed any public funds or anything. And if I was to be removed, I'm our son's main carer through the day while Leanne works. And it'd be like one day I would be there taking care of him, and then if I was removed, deported, he would not have his main carer, not have his dad there, where he sees me every day, you know, and I take care of him every day. It'd be a lot like a large detachment issue that could cause psychological problems in the future for him.
Have you considered, as a family, moving to the States? Is that possible?
We have, yeah. I mean, we've thought about it, obviously, because we do want to remain together as a family, so we have thought about that option. But all of AJ's family is actually living within the UK. My family lives here within the UK, and Jaden is very close to them also. So by taking him out of the UK to America, it would be upsetting him on that part. And, you know, I think the best thing all round for our family is for it to be able to remain here, AJ to be able to work, Jaden stay in his routine and still have his family network around him. And also in America, you know, we haven't got the money to get health insurance for Jaden, for example, and that is a big thing to us because, you know, we want to make sure that if anything was to happen to Jaden in the future, you know, we could go to the hospital or the doctors. And obviously in this country it's a blessing that you can do that. Over there we would have no home, no healthcare, and no work, no jobs.
Let me bring in Patel from the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants. Good morning to you. How many families have been impacted by these income rules since 2012?
Well, our estimates are that about 15,000 children will have been impacted by the rules. In terms of families...
In terms of being separated from one or other parents?
In terms of being separated. In terms of families, it's hard to say, but it's in the tens of thousands in terms of the decisions that are made, or people who just can't meet the threshold.
And let's talk about the legal side of this. What's being argued in the Supreme Court is to do with people's British citizens' right to a family life. Explain that for our audience.
Yes, so I mean, everyone in the UK has a right to a private and family life, which is put into UK law by the Human Rights Act. And one of the other rights, which is very relevant to Leanne's case, is, again, it's in British law, any immigration decision has to put as a primary consideration the best interests of any children that would be affected. And our research shows that not only are children incredibly psychologically impacted by having one of their parents have to leave or just never seeing them, but also that the decision-making process that the Home Office goes through does not do that. It does not look specifically at the best interest of the child in the way that they're legally required to do. So those are the two main questions that the Supreme Court is going to be looking at.
This has been going on since 2013, actually, when the High Court said the government policy was unlawful. The judge urged the Home Secretary to rewrite the rules. That was then overturned at the Court of Appeal, and we're now waiting for this judgment this morning from the highest court in the land, and whatever happens today is definitive, whatever they say.
Yes, except, well, the families could appeal to the European Court of Human Rights on the human rights point.
Right, OK.
But the Supreme Court is definitive in terms of English law.
Yes, OK. So, it's, are you feeling anxious?
A little bit, yes. Yeah. Not just for myself, but for thousands of other families who actually, if I'm perfectly honest, have it a lot worse than I do. Cases like this where there are children involved. I'm fortunate in that every so often we are able to visit one another. We have those resources to do that. There is some hope that I will move into a permanent position that allows her to move here. But for many families, that's not an option, and I really do feel for them, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for them as much as for me.
Tome says, my fiancé, now husband, and I had to do long distance between here and New Zealand due to this rule. It was heart-wrenching, but worth it now. David says, migrants who work and contribute to our economy should not be deported. Some work in essential services. Kurt says, this response is tragic. How do you tell a young boy you're English but go live somewhere else based on earnings? Stott says, though, keep the ban on spouses. This country is under enough pressure when it comes to schools, NHS and housing. Thank you very much, all of you. Thanks for coming on the programme. Obviously, the Supreme Court ruling due this morning, and we will bring it to you live as soon as it comes in.